Hello, hello. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk.
Welcome, welcome.
Today, we have an amazing guest. Vaness Henry is joining us. And for
Yeah.
those of
Hey.
you, who are watching on YouTube, we will be putting up her chart so you can see the insides.
Fun. Come look at my insides if you're curious.
So, Vaness, would you like to introduce yourself?
What should I say here? What's important? Let's stay grounded in the human design space, I guess. My name is Vaness Henry. I'm a 6'2" ego manifestor. I am the cross of healing. I'm looking at my own chart here that Teresa has just, or Brandy has just pulled up and shared on the screen. That's me. I am a trained journalist, and that's really how I came into human design. I am somebody who had a history of being raised in hospitals. I had a parent who passed away really young from cancer and got really familiar with the hospital environment. And it set a little bit of a drive in me. I can see now, like way back then, of not understanding why he got sick in the first place. And then a couple years later, I was diagnosed with my own cancer. And that's when a lot of my anger really clicked in for me. And from there, I figured, well, I know I'm traumatized. I know I've been through some things, and I've been surrounded by other kids who have been sick and passed away. And that's made me really angry. So I decided to invest in my skills, which was, how do I tell my story? How do I sell myself, put myself out there? And I went to college right away in journalism and began this sort of pursuit of wanting to understand what happened to me, I think, and what happened to my dad. And throughout that long journey, I found human design. And I thought for a long time about going into the medical field, just because of, you have all this language in your mouth after going through something like that. And I decided I don't think I'm strong enough to be surrounded by sick people all the time. I think that would really, I think it takes a really special person to do that. And I had amazing nurses and doctors. And so they had a resiliency I wasn't sure that I had. And I decided not to go into that. And lo and behold, I ended up being surrounded by sick people anyway. And when I found out I was the cross of healing, I was kind of discouraged about it, because when you read the Global Incarnation Cross Index, whatever that cute little book is, it says right away, like, you're not a healer per se. Um, but you could be surrounded by a lot of pain if you don't look at it properly. Because if you're going into these places that need healing, there's a reason that there needs to be healing. And I was discouraged by that because, gosh, that sounds like I'm destined for a life surrounded by pain, which is not true at all. And throughout my studies of investigating health, I can see these times where I really started to push into a sort of fear motivation and asking the wrong kind of questions and not really getting the answers that I was looking for. And I started to go in this real alternative medicine route. As I started to ask questions about energies around our bodies that make us sick, I was led into Feng Shui, because that study really looks at the flow and movement of energy around things. And that's ultimately why I really got into variable, was because the language was familiar. If you study Feng Shui, it uses the I Ching, it says things like hardscape, landscape. It was like, oh, this is all sounding really familiar to me. And so through that kind of quest of looking up these alternative disciplines, I started to be groomed by some shamanic family members and recognizing some of the things that had happened to me. And perhaps there was something going on with me that was able to speak to or see things that weren't necessarily there. And I think being groomed as somebody to go through that and also a journalist just helped me to ask these different kinds of questions. And part of my interest in human design was about healing. And the way I discovered human design was in 2013 from a book Karen Curry Parker had wrote. It was the only book in the library, and it said the new science of astrology. And at the time, I was writing astrology or writing horoscopes for Coffee News or whatever. And was like, that's kind of cool. And that was my exposure to human design. I didn't know about Raw. I didn't know about the Jovian Archive or the International Human Design School, but there was nothing else I could find on it. And after I read that book kind of cover to cover, I wasn't experimenting. I didn't really go into an experiment, but I took in the information and tried to go get the software, which at that time you couldn't buy the software if you had a Mac. So I was angry, like my studies were blocked and I felt a little bit frustrated. And then kind of honestly moved away from it. And only when I became a parent and had my son and was really struggling with the demands of being a new parent and also the psychological repercussions, because I was told I wasn't going to be able to have kids. And because of the chemo and radiation I had. And lo and behold, I got pregnant. So it was also really, I didn't choose this. There was some anger there. But it was really this amazing call. And it called me back to human design because I needed to understand my kid. And at that point, once I got called back into it, I started right at variable. And I don't know that a lot of people know this about me, but I learned human design backwards. I began with Ra's catalog. I began at the end point. I began in variable and started from base up or base. We talk about it top down a lot, but I felt a little bit embarrassed when I realized I had learned it backward and had to go in and learn it the right way again. But I had already learned it the way I had learned it because that was what I was needing to kind of continue on that quest of understanding energy around the body. And once I heard Ra talking about all the healing potential with the external design with your environment variable, I don't know, you guys, I just locked into a different kind of gear. I'm now very aware that I'm a sixth line and was just telling you my entire life story. So thank you for giving me the grace of listening to that. But that is how I got into the study and really, really love it and all the characters there. That's it, you guys. That's all. That's all I have to say.
Like, that's all?
That's all. This long-winded. Thanks for listening to me go up on that. I was, I was a little bit distracted when I saw my own chart. I was like, oh gosh, there she is. Hey, girl. Actually, yeah, maybe I could just say that really quick. I do identify as non-binary, but depending on who I interact with, I will really drop into a certain energy, and you guys come with a girlfriend energy. Like I'm often in your DMs talking about your hair and shit, and like is everyone a Leo rising or what? Because my gosh. Anyway.
I'm actually Capricorn rising.
Scorpio rising.
Oh my gosh, nobody's Leo rising. Cute. Love that.
I only have, it's funny because I have a lion tattoo on my leg that I got before I was into all of this stuff. And I'm a Leo South node, but that's the only Leo in my chart. So everybody sees it and they're like, are you a Leo? And I'm like, actually, no.
So Aquarius North node, fun. Very fun. How are you feeling with all this shifting right now?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I feel like I'm in a soup. I feel like I'm in a whirlwind of mutation within myself and what's going on around. But there's also this weird excitement where I'm like, should I feel excited right now? Because the world seems like a garbage can at this point. Like there's just so much going on that's unpredictable. And at the same time, I can feel that things are changing. So
I'm always very moved by when you share about your emotional experience online. I really adore, I was raised by emotional generators. So I really adore the emotional sacral being. And you bring me so much peace in when you share because you help me understand my mom's experience much better. And she had a lot of emotions and power and then happened to be going through grief in the time that she was raising me. And I see now that she had these really great ways of handling it, even though she was, had some emotional outbursts. But the way you share about it is so no pressure. Like, this is my experience and it isn't always even like this. It moves like this. You have such a grace in how you explain about it. And I find anybody who's asking about the emotional experience, I'm often directing them to you because you keep it very positive. Because so much of the emotion, a lot in human design is focused on some negative, you could say, how to deal with your emotions as an emotional authority, which is so unfortunate. I relate there because when manifestors come into this space, one of the first things we hear is you're repelling and you got anger issues. And I always wonder, how would it feel if we entered this space and they were like, oh, you're here for peace. Exciting. Oh, that would really shift how my whole approach would be. I don't know, it would shift it. And the same thing with being an ego manifester. I wonder how I would have felt had I been called like a heart-led manifester. I had a hard time with the word ego in the beginning. I felt like that. Well, I must be shitty. I must be awful. And I was just kind of feeding into a little narrative I had going. But yeah, I think some of the, it's such a hot topic, language in this space.
It is.
Yes.
I love language. I study language. I speak some other languages. And I think if you want to speak the language with someone, you have to speak the language. If I was going to be teaching, or if I met someone, they spoke French and I spoke French, and I started creating words that were like English, French, or new words, and I was trying to communicate with them, they might not know what I'm talking about. So I think when you are able to speak this robotic language, you get into this culture where you're able to have these really different kinds of conversations with people that you wouldn't really be able to have with other people. And having said that, on the heels of just telling you, I wonder how I would have felt if I was called a heart-led manifester, or I think it's human nature to want to tweak some of these things, but also it's the language is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I've kind of come full circle with that. I came into human design in a similar way as you, through more, I would say, like a more feminine approach as opposed to raw.
Ooh,
to
love that.
what introduced me to it,
Yeah.
and then I went only raw, only the language,
Yep.
nothing, and then I've come back to a place now where I'm just like,
but that's
I
so
don't care.
That's the process, right?
Yeah.
I can tell where people are at in their length of study based on, you see a lot in year 2 or year 3. They start often working in the study in some way. Well, they'll offer something, which I think is really necessary for a lot of people. And then around year 3, bonds made and broken, there's some kind of shakeup. Maybe they were collaborating. Once it gets into year 4, people really start to separate from certain people. And I don't really resonate with those people anymore, and it's just a testament to our own deconditioning. And then, as you keep going, by year 6, it can be pretty lonely. You can, in one way, you understand people at this whole new level, but you don't always relate to everyone anymore. And so it starts to, the people that you can have that kind of intimate connection with, I found started to shrink for me.
Yeah.
And yet the human design space is such a healing space, because all the characters that you find there, I have such a love for the space. Okay, I'm a big champion of it. The characters that you find there are very willing, or open to seeing you. And I love to lead with like, hi, I'm an ego manifester, and people know what that means. And they'll show me a different kind of respect that I haven't always felt in certain spaces. And I do just want to say, in the last few years of human design, there's been the whole community as a whole is getting wiser and older. And we have new people coming all the time, but there's a new level of respect. There was even some recent drama and opinions, and I saw that you two were like, we'll talk about this as well, that everyone's just kind of not really willing or open to play with some of those old concepts anymore, and just champion each other. You don't agree with someone, you can respectfully disagree, actually. And you don't have to create a whole big mess. Although some people get off on that, like some people, and then when you see that, it's like, okay, let them have their fun. Like, let them have their fun. I don't care too much about any of this anymore, but there were times when I really did. Yeah, there were times when I really did.
Well, Brandy and I both have 10.6, so our behavior is that of a role model. And I really notice this in our conversations, especially with stuff like this, because we both tend to look at it really objectively. And like you said, we just agree to disagree with some people, but we don't mind talking about it. And I don't mind having conflict or disagreement with that person. Even I think it'd be great to have somebody come on the podcast that doesn't have the same views as us and explain to us what they think and why they think this. And I don't have to agree with that, and I think that's the whole point of differentiation and why I love this system and getting to talk to people through this lens is just getting to see how people's minds work and getting really curious about it. Like I just love seeing how people work, how they tick. That's what drew me to this in the first place. So
I have never moved into such states of like what I would call a peace frequency after going through this kind of discipline, because I don't know, like, how do I want to approach this here? When I kind of came to human design, I think it wasn't a lot of people talking about it on the internet. And then people started exploding and growing. Like I remember when Jenna Zoe started to take off, people were pissed about that. People hate her. And that's too bad because, and you know, I say that, but I've been hard on her. I'm like, she's talking about how to get rid of her cellulite. There's more important things. Well, just, okay, Vanessa, set your opinion aside for a second. And like, if I had all the money in the world and all the privilege and power in the world, I'd be like, like look my best. Like people like really come down on the Kardashians, you know, for shit like that. I love watching the Kardashians because I love watching them through a human design lens. They're Kim and Courtney are mountains environment. Look at Kim's house. What an example. What an example. Oh my God. Anyway. I got distracted with the Kardashian talk, but well, I think what I'm getting at, and there's a lot of different personalities in the space, and you have to kind of go through the weeds to figure out who you resonate with. But then we see examples of like the two of you, which I would love just an opportunity to talk to you about this. The human design space is such an amazing space to make a different kind of connection, like a real high quality friendship that we might not have experienced before. I know you come to this space and you love your friends and you love your people, but you also kind of know or subtly know there are people you hang out with that maybe you don't vibe with. Maybe you don't actually resonate with them, but they've always been there. You have this history. Maybe you're the one treating them like shit. You know, like there is this accountability component in there too. And as you kind of learn more about the study, you meet people online, of all things, and you intimately know things about them right away because they've just self-declared they're this or that in their design, and you know what that means. Or you share something, wow, and you get into these relationships with people that are transformative, that are healing. I think the two of you are an example of a high quality healing relationship. And the fact that you're these fourth lines and have this show, and you show us, like, your show could just be the two of you. I get that it's strategic to have guests and expand, and I get it. But you two are such characters that are adored and beloved in the space. And it's your friendship also that is a joy to watch. And how your husbands are now pals or whatever, you know, it's like, oh, wow. And you travel across to meet each other. And we can feel just by watching you the quality of your connection. And something I learned about, I have a show on YouTube called On the Roof. And I learned this show started to be triggering for some people and they couldn't watch it. And I was like, why? That I was in a happy relationship with my husband. And they realized, wow, I don't have a friendship with my husband. I can't watch this. This is triggering. And I kind of got a little bit of the energy from that. And I thought, so should I stop showing this? But I love it. It's fun. And it became this sort of photo album for my family. And my little fourth line child wanted to get involved, wanted to be on this show because it seemed fun. And so we let him. So that's why I'm a big fan of the two of you, for what I feel you represent in this space. You show us that we don't have to necessarily put up with the relationships we think we do. We can open ourselves up to these really high quality connections that are healing, that you can travel across the world if you need to be with each other, and sometimes do nothing but just be together, because so much of the relationship is your personality interacting, you know, but to actually be body to body is special. I can talk, you guys. I can talk. Like sometimes I go off in this little tangent, but anyway, here we are.
I had a feeling you were going to want to talk about our friendship.
Yeah.
I just love it. I do a lot in the space. Actually, to expand on that, it's another kind of tricky lesson. Like, are you guys even asking me anything? No, I'm just here, blah, 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 talking.
To that with manifestors.
Yeah.
I did this other project in the human design space. I like to collaborate, and like, you know, I did something called this Spacious Network, which was this app. And I had asked a bunch of friends in this space, they need to be a high volume of people. Would you like to come do this app? We'll split the profit. We're just going to make a bunch of art and we'll do it for this length of time and see what we do, or see how we do, see what we learn. Like kind of like an intentional business experiment, you know? And from that, I learned that people felt, because I chose people, it created people who felt not chosen. And I was like, what? No, these are just people I have a relationship with. Like these were just people that I knew, and I thought this would be a good mix. And we had this spread of design types. And then the reflector community was like, there's no reflectors. Like, I was like, I don't have that kind of relationship with the reflector. I wasn't picking that way. I was just like, hey, we're friends. Let's do this. Yeah. And then it created that sense of people not being chosen, which was so not the point. The point was to show the friendship and the space and the collaboration in the space. But again, I thought, well, should I stop? Should I not be showing that then? Should I not be doing stuff if it's going to make people feel othered or something? You know, couldn't be further than what I wanted to do. And then, you know, it started to sound like Vaness Henry's app. What? That's not what this is either. And I started to feel some kind of way. Every time I created something, they would say it's Vaness Henry's podcast, Vaness Henry's app. And I was like, fuck, what am I doing wrong? Like, no, this is everybody. And so I kind of stopped collaborating for a bit.
Okay, I'm just
to see
gonna
what I
tell
felt.
you, I can feel that. I feel that not from, I mean, in my own experience. And I just
Yeah.
wonder with these similarities of that 2145 and the sixth line. And because I have a
Yeah,
business
Brandy.
and
Yeah.
it's like, it's not my, I just wanted to start it and have this tribe and do this thing. And it's like, it's Brandy's thing and it's Brandy's this. And I'm like, it's not though.
So I would love to hear how you manage that.
And so I pulled back, just like
Yeah.
you mentioned.
Mm.
I just kind of pulled back and I was like, I delegate. I have hired out in certain situations where it was like also for my own energy, but yeah, delegating and just kind of have to remove myself for a little bit. I'm not
Mm.
really doing a lot there right now. I mean, I am behind the scenes, but not like in person because it started to become this thing where it was also like, oh, the energy is different when you're there. You have to be there. So there was this expectation of my energy and it was like
Responsibility.
responsibility. And if you're an ego being and you're not feeling that respect, it's
Woo!
kind of
Look out. Yeah.
so just kind of like removing my energy for a little bit intentionally to see how it can be when it's not just labeled as me.
So what have you learned? You've pulled some of your energy away. What are you noticing now?
I'm noticing what I have the capacity for, what I want to do, where I can let other people shine, just kind of teaching. We kind of have to like teach people how to not rely on us. I think very tribally. I'm native. I have a lot of tribal circuitry. So I literally think of myself. Sometimes I'll put myself like, oh, like the tribal leader is like oftentimes like pulled away,
Yeah, good
sitting
point.
back and people come to them instead of like inserting themselves all of the time. And so I just really kind of realize like that's how also people around me can figure out how they're really good at things and they can build their strengths, and then just come to me for
Or yeah, maybe you've experienced this where you suddenly realize, wow, this person in my field is way better at that than I am.
100%.
Hey, come here. Like,
Yeah.
like then the whole thing is going to be better. If
Mhm.
I'm doing it, it's not going to be as great. But if you
Yes.
come in with your special way, wow. Yeah, I like that about, sitting back and sort of directing, but you have to kind of get to that.
Yes. Because also, with the 2145, it's like, oh, I can point out the best fisherman, but I'm also the best fisherman.
Totally. Yeah.
I can point out the best hunter, but I am also the best hunter.
And
So
I'll prove it. I will show
and
you.
I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
show
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but what does that do? That doesn't build that tribe, and
All I
that's
have
that
to do is
really
keep fishing, and I don't want to
Mhm.
fish all the time.
Exactly. I
Totally.
got to let somebody else do it. Oh my gosh, they're actually way better. Releasing
Yeah.
control, releasing control. But
Yeah.
we can't release control unless we step back. But then, yeah, you're right. You have to like build it up. And then you're like, oh shit, it is not, everybody's starting to think it's all me and it's not me.
No. Well, and if I could kind of segue into another conversation, there is a Black community in the human design space. At the time of this recording, we're in Black Awareness Month. And they point out some important things, and not everybody in the human design space cares about that. So I'd like an opportunity to talk about this.
Absolutely.
When you look at even the International Human Design School, it has improved in recent years. However, it's very white presenting. And some people are like, I don't care, I just want the information. And it's like, but we're also in an awareness study. We're also needing to become more collectively aware of everything, and a big thing with the 2020s, there was a big cohort of learners that came into human design in the 2020s, and now they're all at that year 4 time where they're breaking up with each other and finding who they actually resonate with. It's a very exciting group to watch. I think they call themselves like the class of 2020. I'd love to watch them. Hi, if you're there, I really like you. Anyway, about that, liking you. I got distracted. I actually don't know what I was going to say about you. I got so confused by the adoration that I feel for that group. But Brandy, what were we just discussing? What were we just saying?
What did you want to say about the Black community in the human design space?
God, thank you. What a horrible area to forget my language around. My goodness, please excuse me. There'll be I was just invited to a big event, and the entire speaker list were white women. And I felt a way about it. And when they were asking me to promote and sponsor, I said, I will not be, and here's why. And kind of pointed this out. And then the next day I was tagged in something. Here are my 10 favorite human design accounts. And I'm listed on there. And everyone on the account else who's been tagged is white. So I reply with some of my favorite accounts just to diversify. And something I hear often is, well, I can't find any people of color to follow. Okay, well, there's your first issue. Like you're seeking that out. You're not in it for the I don't want to say the right reasons, but there's something else that we should actually be looking at beneath that. Naturally, whoever you're watching looks like this. And so there's a lot of white privilege within this space. And there's this people who don't want to look at that. And so a lot of the reason why I started collaborating was to show this is a really diverse space. Like, you can't tell me you can't find people. I don't know any Black people in human design. Fuck you. If you watch me and everything I've made, I have a podcast with 2 amazing Black women in it. I've done a whole docu-series with people of color in it. Like, don't tell me you can't find it. There's a bigger issue kind of going on there. And it makes me upset because I have fallen in love with some people who have really shown me the lack of diversity in the human design space. And it's created its own culture within the space. And I think a big issue is because of things like the International Human Design School, who is the leader. I think that there could be a little bit more intention there to diversify, because everybody that you want to take a Living Your Design course with is you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, if it's an issue everywhere, well, then let's talk about it, because we're in an awareness study. And if we're not talking about it, let's just direct focus on the people who are talking about it and who are the experts on it. Because something else that is possible that I want to speak to, I mentioned to you, I have fallen in love with some people in the human design community who have shown me a lot about my own whiteness. And I hung out in some spaces where I think there was a hate toward white people, which I think is understandable. And I see that I started to ingest some of that and didn't really want to see white people succeed or have any success. Or if I buy something I saw it was a white person, I was just very, And also at this time, my husband and son are Métis. And my son's in a lot of Indigenous studies to support his culture, and he's very passionate about it. So he also comes home talking about it. So I can get a little bit amped up from him. So it's a bit loud in my world right now, I guess. But it's also, Black History Month. So it's like, let's just have a little moment to kind of, I guess, just talk about it. And when I realized I was ingesting some of this hatred, I stopped growing because I, in a way, didn't want to see myself succeed, because I represented the thing that I hated, that everybody else was around me was also hating. And it only when there were, I'm bumbling over my words a bit because I just wanted to respect privacy on certain people, but there have been people in my life, specifically Black women, who are so loving and encouraging to me, and who have examples in their life where they have fallen in love with white people. Maybe it's their partner, maybe it's their children, maybe one of their parents is white, and they can't hold ill will and hatred in their hearts toward white people. It was healing for me to be around them and see that all the awful things that my people have done to your people, and you're still willing and open to love me. Wow. And you're telling me that there's going to be a spotlight on me just because I'm white, just because I'm in female form, and that more people are going to hear me, and you wish I would speak to what? Okay. So I think there was a time I was really wielded by my friends in that community, but then I also started to recognize that I didn't want to see myself succeed, because I didn't want to see any versions of me succeed. And that wasn't really the way. And this kind of full circle brings me back to the frequency in the body that I think is cancer causing is hatred, particularly self-hatred. I think when we hold that inside, that the cells in the body can manipulate and get confused. And cancer itself, the reason the body gets so sick is because the cells grow from within. They're a little bit me, but they look different. So my body doesn't really know how to attack it or deal with it. My cells are confused. And well, why do they get confused? And in the cancer patients that I've worked with in my life, there is a strange theme, if you look for it, of self-loathing for whatever reason. And so when I click into that frequency of self-loathing and self-hatred, it's terrifying. Because in my world, I am deducing some type of essay around, well, is that frequency and what is it and how do we describe it? Is that what leads to the cellular confusion that then starts to manipulate the growth in the body that can become these really terrifying things? And the reason I'm in variable and study variable as somebody who's a shamanic practitioner, because it allows you to see deep into somebody's soul. And as soon as you look at somebody at that depth and you see all these possible things that could have gone on with them if they're malnourished or they're not set up in the way that they need, you can understand why they're sick or why they feel how they feel. And so how do you actually support someone in making the meaningful changes that they need to make to heal what they need to heal? And oftentimes this is very real things, like people are chronically or terminally ill. And Teresa, I know you've talked about German New Medicine, so I know that you're sort of aware of what I'm talking about, something I really like. Brandy, I'm not so sure.
Yes.
You're familiar with it too, yeah.
We love it.
You love it here, okay. So I like Louise Hay, who's in a similar field, but she's a little bit more controversial. Not everybody likes her. And I get it, you know what I mean? But I like it.
That's where I started.
Oh,
Louise Hay was my gateway drug.
Oh, love that.
I have her the pink book. I forget what it's called.
Oh my gosh. I have this one. I keep it here. This one.
Heal Your Body. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like a little reference. I love little reference books like that. Anyway, that's cool. Didn't know that about you, Brandy. Cool character detail. Thank you. And we weren't always ready for I think that type of information, like your nose hurts. Well, are you being recognized in your life? I don't think we were always ready to make the leap, but I think we are now. And it's funny, you just ask people the right question and they can come totally undone. Like right before, the strongest person can just come totally undone. And I find if I look into someone's variable, if they'll let me, because it's very intimate. And then you get a little bit of their story and what they're going through. I just feel like suddenly it becomes a magic eye and you're like, I can drop into this place and ask these hard-hitting questions that just open them up to think about their life in a different way. And then therefore lead them to, well, how might we integrate some of the deeper aspects of your design? Because this is far beyond learning how to make a decision. It's about being aware. And I used to be very, quote unquote, by the book in variable. But I guess the more I reference like the variable program that Ra did, and you hear him and like Alec getting into debates, and you're like, so what I know about the character Alec is from those teachings. You know, it's like I have this whole impression of him because he's one of these people. Anyway, isn't that funny? I've never worked with that person directly or taken in their material, but I am aware of them because they've been like immortalized in some of these teachings just by the questions they asked. So it's neat to see, sorry, I'm all over the place here, but it's neat to see who some of the original people were in those learnings and teachings, and to see them now. I was also really impacted by like Martin Grassinger's work.
We've had them
also
both on Coffee
Talk.
Talk.
Chetan Parkin as well. I saw some things by Steve Rhodes. Steve
Rhodes' work is really interesting.
Yeah, because the way that variable is described, a lot of the language has been changed. I remember seeing that survival view, I believe, was changed to priorities. And it was just enough for me to go, yeah, okay. Like, I see where you're going with that. And so I actually really like when the area is mutated. But so anyway, I studied it with Ra kind of continuously, just because we all adore Ra, okay? But Buddy, the teaching and the winding stories and, you know, dropping these Easter egg nuggets and the places that they shouldn't be. And it's just, you know, I go to source material. It's like, do you? Because that's one of the most confusing places to learn. Like, he's like all the power to him. We bow to him. But he was so experimental with his catalog. And all of a sudden he's doing something, it's not working. So let's abandon that. And let's go over here. And then people are like, but this is a Bible. It's like, no, he was a guy trying to figure it out. And all these studies. So a reason why I really love the Feng Shui study, which is an ancient teaching, thousands of years old. And this is from the Lady of the Nine Heavens came down, just like the voice, you know, and gave the emperor all these teachings. And as that study has evolved, society has evolved. And so if this information is not valuable to us, if we can't apply it. So for example, mountain energy, you know, you used to need to plant in a place where there were mountains around you, because the flow of chi would really flow really well in these types of spaces. But then skyscrapers became the same mountain energy. The flowing energy that would be like a valley of like the highway, the water in the rivers, that became like road energy. So the flow of the water became the flow of the highway, you know, so the study needed to mutate in order to still be applicable to the current society so that they could get benefit from the study. I'm really influenced and inspired by that. And that's kind of how I see astrology or the shamanic arts, or even something like human design. And human design is so infantile in its development. So we're really part of a second generation of studiers who are helping implement it, embody it, and flesh it out. And I want to say, after having worked with people so intimately, and having that kind of journalism background, I'm not comfortable parroting a teaching if I haven't seen it at this point. And I've seen so many examples in people that's all my material. Like, that's all that I teach is what I've seen. I think that's why it resonates with people, because it's a real example from the world coming out that somebody has experienced, and people are like, oh yeah, I can connect with that. And I think when some of this information was first translated, there wasn't always the examples. And some of us just need that last little point to make it make sense for us. How does this work actually? How would this look out in the real world? And that those examples weren't always there because they were being cultivated at that point. And a big one is with sound. Like, sound is so emphasized on acoustics. And I find that it's really about amounts. Volume as in how much, not how loud. So of course there is this musical component, but that's just a little piece of it, you know, and there's so much more.
Yeah, I love how you bring up sound. My brother is high sound and his wife is low sound. And I've watched a lot about sound by watching them, because he's a software developer. So when I think about high
Mm.
sound, I think about complexity, and
Mm.
he is taking in this very complex information all day. And I was laughing one day because she was telling me that he likes to listen to audiobooks while they eat dinner. And she's like, it's too much for me.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want like, just classical music or meditation sounds, even. I want something more chill. I don't want to be taking in all this information while I'm eating. So it's just really
It's
interesting
too
because
much.
I've always seen him as this person that can take in this really complex information. Even when we were little, he's my older brother, so a lot of my music tastes were inspired by him when I was younger. And I remember listening to some of the stuff he listened to, and being his little sister, I wanted to think it was cool, and I was like, I just can't
I
get
don't
on
get
board with this,
it.
like.
Yeah.
Remember, I like
My
stole his Chumbawamba CD, and I was like, "What is he listening to?"
I get knocked down. Yeah. Oh my God. Funny.
Yeah, so I
Um,
love that you bring that up because there's just so much nuance once you actually start seeing
yeah,
it in the wild and seeing people living it, especially people who don't know human design and they're just being themselves and
I love
liking what they
that.
like and gravitating towards what they gravitate towards. And I didn't even really tell them, oh, you're high sound and you're low sound. I just giggling to myself about it. I'm like,
That's fun. Hey, I feel I'm at this point where if I watch someone long enough, I can go, kitchens, this. And sometimes some people I'll reach out if I'm feeling so bold. I'm sure that's so scary, but I'm like, are you kitchens? And they'll be like, I am. Oh my God, how'd you know? It's, well, actually, I've been watching you do blah, 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 or whatever. And it's just fun. On the topic of sound, my husband and I are high and low sound. And yeah, the biggest way I see this shake out in our life is I always need more information. I'll ask another question and he will start to glaze over. It's like, this is too much information, too high a volume of information. I need it to scale down. It's so fun though. It's it's one of my favorite parts of our dynamic. And in the human design study, if you're a calm eater and a nervous eater, you can't be together. I disagree. I think one of my favorite things about my dietary regimen is my husband's alongside mine. And he and I started a podcast production company. We do a lot of sound projects, and so neat to now be like to see how that plays out. He's caves feeling, and so he can really create this essence and this mood. It's really the background energy of the show. And I'll come in pew, 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 with some like executive production on the little tiny details. And so it's a really nice blend. But yeah, we're taking in different things when it comes to nourishment, different. And I will eat way more than him as well. Like I'll be like consuming with this active brain and he's passive. And it's like, you're 6'2" giant guy. What are you gonna eat? Whenever, when I'm hungry, depending what I'm doing. And I'm just like, okay, I'm starving. And he does the cooking. I have really stepped away from that role. I was like, would you like to do the cooking? He's like, sure. He's a great chef. So I'm like, when are we going to eat and how much? And I'm starving. And he's just like, relax, like very chill guy, low sound, I feel like I can spot low sound people in the community too by how they express,
They like almost talk lower and slower.
Yes. And you can hear if they have a defined heart because it's a power trip when they do that. They want the entire room to shut up to listen to them. But it's like, ooh, okay, I'll play. Let's do it. Yeah.
I love it. I love how fun you make human design, Vanessa. I really think
It's
that's
so
just,
fun.
I think that's why you draw people in because people, I'm not gonna lie. I think we all go through I think it's normal and healthy to question ideologies and belief systems that we've maybe formed and biases through the system and to even question our relationship to the system. And I've kind of gone through
Oh,
that. I'm in
yeah.
my 6th year and I've gone through that over this last year where I'm really like, what does the system mean to me and how do I want to work with it? And
That's
I'm
that loneliness,
reevaluating.
hey?
Yes, when you said that,
Mhm.
I was like, that's exactly where I'm
Mhm.
at right now. Like, thank God for Brandy, like giving me somebody to work through this with. But other than her and my
Love
husband,
that.
there is a deep loneliness there. And yeah, it's like you really just kind of start questioning things and your energy around it makes me excited to be a part of human design. It makes me like proud to be a part of it. And
Oh,
I'm like, oh,
love
there's
that.
an
Open
other
heart. Thank you.
yeah, there's like it's something else that we can it's like you're showing a different way. And I know Ra has said this. I feel like this is very true that 6/2s are going to be like the leaders of
Mm.
the future. And I think sometimes you're ahead of all of us so much that people
Mm.
are not accepting of it. But then we come around to it, right? We're like, oh, that's almost too different. That's too advanced. And then there's a curiosity, and then we can actually come back around to it and be like, oh, I see what they were doing there, you know?
I think there is value in, people have opinions about this. If you create new material or something, like I like to initiate new ways of understanding the classic information so that we can, and this is not necessarily about to teach someone something new, but to show them what they're doing in their life already that shows how much of them they are. Like there's a big healing in that. People feel really seen. Oh my God, I did this post recently on Instagram where I was like, here's what I like the best. Like so ego, like I like this, these are the things I like. And people were like, oh, I feel so seen. I'm like, why? I've just plucked out what I like and I've said why I liked it. And they're like, oh, but it made me feel chosen. What the fuck is this
Back to
energy?
chosen.
Oh.
People want to be chosen by you,
I'm like,
Vanessa.
well, I don't know you. All the best to you. And I hope you're out enjoying a good time. But this, it doesn't all need to be so serious. And you know what? I think we learn the best and retain the information through play.
Yes.
If you're making us feel bad, well, we're not going to want to take that in. But if you make us laugh, I love to entertain. I love to put on a show. I love to make people laugh. I really feel my 6 line there. Like, let's put on a show, like let's entertain them. Because if you laugh about it, you're going to recall it better. It's going to have, if at the end of the day, I want to have an impact on you and leave you with something, well, then I've got to leave you with something worth remembering. And I find that we have so much in our life that is hard. It's hard being alive. People die, we get sick. What is this? That's a lot. And if we can go to a place where we can laugh and learn about ourselves, that's healing. Like I want to hang out there, And when people are being awful and saying these things and they're met with a community that's like, I'm here, that's healing. So I started to feel like there was this growing culture within the human design space that I didn't like. I didn't like it. And I thought, okay, well, I know I've been self-limiting because I don't want to see myself succeed or versions of me succeed or blah, 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 whatever narrative I'm myself. And now this people are fighting with this people. I don't care about this. Oh my gosh. Well, what is within my own power and my own sense of accountability and responsibility to make an effect on where I can make an effect? Like how might I contribute to the culture? And then hopefully, that becomes our own, like we're all contributing to the culture. Maybe people will pick up on that. And that's where I think it comes back to respect. I'm going to treat everybody I engage with this certain level of respect, so much so that if I'm not even feeling good, I'm going to cancel because I don't want to show up and leave them with something that, because I'm not feeling good, I'm going to leave it with them. I don't want to do that to them. I don't want to do that to me. So I'm going to cancel. And you know who's the most forgiving on canceling? People in the human design community. They're like, yep, I get it. No big deal. Wow. Okay. So you're not going to hate me if I do that? Gosh, that's so healing. I'm even more like loyal to you in a way. So there's all this spaciousness and permission within this space and this growing respect that makes me feel proud about showing up in the space. Because if I don't feel proud, I'm just not going to show up in the space. And for me as a shores person and somebody who comes from more of a shamanic background, how can I have my foot planted in my world, which is doing this strange alternative medicine and inquiry around healing? And how can I have a foot planted in the human design world, but also the astrology world, also the German new medicine world? How might I be able to do that? And I see that everybody here is shores. And I like that. I like that. I remember discovering Brandy was shores. Brandy's also thirst. And Brandy was in the pool, like being all sexy, doing some shit. And she's like, this is so Thurston Shores. And I was like, I love everything. Give her a show.
Oh,
Give
I
her a
think that
show.
was in Santa Fe when I was like under a fountain and it was like,
Put her in a documentary. Let us watch her. So beautiful and so educational. Yeah, I love that. That was actually why I did a little, like tried to do a little docu-series. It was like, let's just show, which is also something I had experimented with in the Spacious app that I was telling you about. Let's just show people being amazing and beautiful. And let's just point it out. Let's just point out how wonderful they are. Like, let's just show it. I'm really proud of that piece of work. And I think it will age well as like a little gift in the human design space. It just takes a lot of energy to make. and I didn't make any money on that. So I was like, well, I got to maybe rethink this. If I gotta put all my energy into this here, ooh, it's knocking me out for a few months after. Maybe I got to rethink this. But I'm still really proud of that creation because of just being able to show human design in a way that is entertaining, and educational entertaining.
Yeah, I'm totally
Edutainment.
with you. I'm totally with you on that. And that's I like a lot of like pop culture and comedy podcasts. That's a lot of the content that I take in. And I was
Love that.
thinking we don't really have that vibe anywhere in human design. Like I definitely recognize your efforts in making it
Mhm.
more accessible and real people and silly and all of that. And that's kind of been my agenda with this podcast is how can Brandy and I show up and just be ourselves and be silly and also be serious and just kind of take people along this ride with us and bring guests on to it as well. But how can we almost
Yeah,
bring that kind of pop culture vibe to the human design space? And I'm a
I
Libra
love
midheaven,
that.
and I think that might be part of it too. Gemini
Ooh,
sun. So yeah, I have like a
ooh.
lot of air. And I think I was always like afraid that if I showed that side of myself that I wouldn't be seen as professional or I need to be like there is some people in this space that take it very seriously and are very serious about it and that's fine if that's their flavor and I think I was maybe thinking that needed to be my flavor in order to be a serious professional and I'm like no we can actually just do whatever we want and have a lot of fun with it
And
and
what are
so
you
that's
going
the
to
vibe yeah
enjoy? Like as
exactly
an
what I want to
individual?
listen to yeah
Because some of us, yeah, are designed to be quite studious in that way, and like all the power to them, let them have that. But for me, so much of my early life was so serious. I don't, at this point in my life, what I need is some of that lightness and playfulness that I maybe didn't get to experience all the time when I was young. And I think that's like kind of like the point of life. Like, how much fun could I have while I'm here? Because I never know when it's going to end and when I'm going to have to check out. And if this would be my last day, am I proud of how I'm living? The threat of mortality I feel has always been around me quite close, and so it kind of keeps you aligned. It keeps you walking the middle way, because when death is always kind of walking and it's a familiar character that it can be scary, or you can make a friendship there, and you again, hello, you again. And I think it can keep us on path. And at the end of the day, this information is for kids. And so much of Ra's life's work was having to reroute that original goal to educate parents so that they could be raising kids in a way that they didn't necessarily have the same conditioning factors that we did. So, does the language need to be that clunky? If I have to explain this to kids, that's how I really know I've got it. If I can drop down and talk to a kid and explain to the kid like their energy, then I've got it. If I can do that, then I've got it. And so I don't know that it needs to, like, if I was trying to get this information to a kid, I would have to go through play. Like, I would have to go through some kind of fun, educational, but entertaining learning. And I think about that a lot as I go on my roof journey. How would I get this information to kids? And so in working with my son and seeing what he resonates with, he's very drawn to the body graph, like the shapes, right? Ooh, oh, mom, what's that? And he intuitively seems to understand how that all flows once you just point it out to him. But when it gets you're in the company of people who speak this language and they're all strict, at the end of the day, I'm like, this is fucking babies, chill out. Like, we gotta get this into the hands of little kids. It doesn't need to be who said this and Ross said what and Martin Grassinger says this and Karen Curry Parker says this, and like, are you getting what you need out of it? That's all that really matters.
right. And I feel like the thing that if I had to tell somebody in a nutshell what I've gotten out of human design, acceptance, acceptance of
Absolutely.
life, acceptance of other people. And if that's all I
Ooh.
ever got and I didn't know all the things I know or whatever, I would actually be really satisfied with that.
Yes,
And that's
we're
something that I
acceptance
see.
sense.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
looking at both of you. I'm
We're
like, you're
both
both acceptance. I love that. Yeah.
that's something that I see in other people that have been in this system for a long time and really embody it. And Brandy and I go to these conferences every year and we've really spent a lot of time with people in the space. And that's a thread that I really see with people. There's an acceptance of what is. And it's really calming
Mhm.
to be around people that are just accepting.
But even, may I? I'm going to.
Do
Why
it.
the fuck are we still doing conferences? Like, this is like a group of anarchists. Like, let's put a party on, a festival on. Like, I'm looking at inner space. If you knew how many fucking things I've planned there, like there. And
Let's
there's
do
like,
it, Vanessa.
You know how many things we've
that's the
planned
perfect
there?
space. I believe it, because
We're like waiting. I'm like, what are we waiting for? I don't
Well,
know.
to
what an incredible
Jonah's
space
credit,
you've created too.
to Jonah's credit, his conference is not really, I mean, it is a conference, but it's a big
That's
party. We call
but
it
is
Mr.
it
Toad's Wild Ride because you never know what's going to happen at that conference.
that character on the field exudes this passionate anarchist energy. And it's like, I don't know this guy, and it's totally a projection, okay? But like, I just want to see him go into that and be like, here's a fucking party. Let's go. Human design experiments for you, for you, for you. We would show up. Like, we want to show up for that. We don't want to be so by the book. We want to be free and spacious and relaxed and playing.
In
You know, like a
person, that
big
is how
gym
it
riot
is.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got the sense of when people are together, it is that way. And it seems very fourth line there too. But had it, and maybe this isn't the goal of it, right? Again, projection. But to the public, if somebody put out to the public that energy of party, festival, that kind of anarchist energy of like, we're not students, like we're like, what, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't need to be so button fucking up. It can just be play. I think people would rush to that, to go and like, again, like I see like a gym riot energy, like you're doing experiments, like you're applying and seeing how does this all work, and it's fun and we all get it, and I get to meet you and I've never met you and I get to meet you. Like, it's still about learning, but I think learning through play is just so fun. So I love hearing that that's what that
is what it is.
like in real life. Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is just that that's not what's being communicated in like
Not
the
being
marketing or whatever.
communicated. Yeah.
Because it and Brandy and I can vouch for this. It's very different when you're there, and it does just feel like a big playground and very lighthearted for the.
We would
I mean,
love
for the
to
most
see that.
part. Every year has been different, and I think that's Jonah's goal too, is to have it be different every year and to keep people on their toes and never know what to expect. But it really does, at the end of the day, feel like a big party, and we do aura experiments and all kinds of stuff. Like, so it is very fun, and I think he's gotten. Like last year, he really brought in a nice variety and different perspectives, and it wasn't this like whole buttoned up
shit went down
situation.
last year, though. Yeah. Shit goes down all the time with these things.
It does.
That's
it
the
always
tea,
will.
hey? That's the coffee talk tea. When the people get together, I love it, because then after all the stories get on, the reflectors are mad. Like, what's going on? Yeah. How are we all
the forest
feeling?
lines are hooking up with each other, and
oh my god, when people start dating in the human design space, again, I'm like, give them a show. Let's see, like, what are we gonna learn?
Put them on a reality TV show.
I'm a voyeur, you know what I mean? No shame, but yeah, I love to watch. I love to see people fucking being themselves, you know. But then when we can apply the filter of human design and just, oh, they're a generator, oh, they're this, they're that, and we see that, it's so enjoyable to me. Like, honestly, you could make the Kardashian show and just point out their energetics going on, and I would be fascinated. Any public person, I'm picking out the Kardashians, but how amazing would that be if human design gets to this space where everyone in the world knows if they're a generator or a manifestor? You don't need to know all these depths. I get it. But if everyone knew that what their design type was in the way that they know what their astrology sign or pieces of their natal chart are, we would just know how to engage with each other in a way that makes the movement easier. You know, people are so respectful to me at this point in my life when they know I'm a manifestor and they want to ask me something, and they're figuring out like, how do I approach her? But no disrespect. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And people figure it out. They figure out how to talk to you. And it makes me feel so cared for that somebody would go out of their way to they want something from me. Like, they want my opinion, sure, but they go out of their way to just take a minute to be like, well, what's going to make that more enjoyable for her? Like, if I ultimately want to get something out of her, how could I manipulate the situation where I'm like, manipulate me, go for it, manipulate me if you're going to make it easier for me. Absolutely. I love that. And also, thank you.
Yeah. That is a world that I fantasize about, where we all just know each other. It's just like how astrology is, you know. I think so too. I mean, I was even listening to this podcast the other day about Ronald Reagan. Like, about his life, but the tea on his life, you know, about the blind items, the behind the scenes, the shit we really want to know. And his birth time is available. And I see he's a 4/6 with an undefined G and all of these things. And then understanding like how he got into politics. He was an actor and he was just really well connected.
This is fascinating. Isn't this fascinating?
Yes. This is the kind of stuff I love, right? I'm like, I actually love history when I start learning about it, but I also can see these figures and the fourth line corruption and how he made certain political decisions because of that fourth line network and being influenced by people with his open G. And so this is the kind of stuff where you actually really look back. Yeah, it's still messed up, the things that he did, but you can also see the mechanics of it and be more
Right.
accepting of it.
We're not here to form opinions about what he did. That story's out there. We want to understand why he might have done what he done. That's so interesting.
Yes.
And you know what? If I could kind of leave you with anything, like if you have that desire there, and you're very drawn to pop culture and you have this space with the two of you have this incredible dynamic and you're both interested in it. The way you both speak to fourth line things is really valuable for us as a community. We learn so much from the two of you in that way and just what you share. You could easily go into plucking out a solo episode of you guys, plucking out characters in pop culture and just going all in on that. We would love to hear that because how fascinating. You see that content start to trend. You know, people are always sharing Beyonce's chart or so-and-so's chart. I get a lot of feedback when I share illness, actually. There'll be a new cancer story and I'll put up the body graph and just show, look at where the cancer moved and look at where their centers are open. And I get feedback about that. But we like to see each other through those lenses. You guys can absolutely give us that delightful content here and there that's like, we're going to dive on Ronald Reagan and look at why this 4/6 character did. Like, it's entertaining to us. And it's, and you guys are also like, let it just be said. You're both very beautiful. You know, you're both very beautiful. So I love that there's been this switch to the podcast format has kind of moved away from Instagram. And now there's this video component because we do just like to watch you, you know, we do just like to watch and listen to you. So thank you for showing us from this space. Thank you for letting us see you. Yeah.
I'm going to leave this conversation with my little open ego. So pumped up now. Like I need more egos in my life telling me I'm amazing. Thank you. I do. I always do.
You're an open heart. So yeah, like let that come in.
Pump it up.
Yeah. Receive.
Yeah. Fully received.
Thank you for having me on today. I have been a fan of your show, but like I said before, fan of the two of you and what you're doing in the space and just how you get us into the conversations we actually need to be having. And I love when you just go speak right to it. And then you have these really beautiful ways of being articulate, but also graceful in giving your opinions, which I think we can all learn from.
We just dropped an episode today.
We were both really worried about it. We're like, were we too mean?
Oh my God. Was it too provocative? And we were kind of like, you know, you're always going through our emotions.
You'll always be safe together.
Oh yeah.
You'll always be safe together.
And and when we re-listen to it, like, oh no, that needed to be said. That was not that provocative. I mean, it might be.
It's okay with being provocative sometimes and making us think about things and being in the safety of the community of each other. And your people love you and know your story and know where you're coming from. And sometimes people need to say it. And you guys have this great way of also laughing, you know, like you can say it, but you can go. What I admire about the two of you is you can go really deep and you can also go nice and light. And it creates this spaciousness and flexibility inside that shows you're embodying something and you've done what you need to do with the study for yourself. And you're now entering in these places of embodying those characteristics with awareness in a different way. And we just feel it off you. You know, people say shit and sometimes you're like, woo, but you can feel where they're coming from. And if they don't feel it, then goodbye. And go find another show. Go listen to another person dissect Ronald Reagan. You know, really.
Now I want to do an episode on him. You got me excited about it.
Well, I love that you guys just dropped that. I think I'd be interested to see the reaction and the response because like I said, you're very adored and respected in the human design community. And if anybody can go have those conversations and call us out where we need to be better and what we need to be looking at. I mean, Brandy's got that 6 line. You both got those 4s and Teresa with your 2 and this natural brilliance. You guys just have a way of educating us on the cultural components we need to be thinking about. And you happen to do it in this way that I personally feel is very digestible.
I think that's kind of the 10.6, at least that I've noticed, is there's this fear of being a hypocrite as a 10.6, but it's also this need to hold up the higher principles and to just know that we can't always be everything. Even if we can call something out, we still might make a mistake. That's so human to do that. But if we're seeing something from that kind of objective behavioral lens, we're watching everybody's behavior. That's what a 10.6 does, right? And then we're going to say things about it. And then we might be hypocritical. And then I'll call out my own hypocrisy.
Exactly. Exactly. As if you're calling out people or behaviors or I call out patterns that I see, I try not to call it individuals because it's not really, it's too pointy on my aura. But, and then I'll say something and people will think I'm talking about them and they'll take it so personally.
Right.
And I'm kind of the mind, if I'm saying anything, I've seen it 4 or 5 times. So
Yes.
you might be someone who's in there, but I'm not singling you out, and people will always kind of feel singled out. So I will go with some trepidation or some caution, you know, like,
yeah, same.
I wrote this, I had a column when I was young and it was called Shades of Red. And it was just me in college picking out shit I hated. Like, so not a good thing for me. Like, so not a good thing for me. And there were these students who would bring giant suitcases and haul all this stuff. And I wrote an article basically making fun of them. I'm not proud. Okay. I'm not proud. And I wasn't aware of certain people with disabilities who were needing that. But I wrote this article like, you guys with your pea coats and your suitcases, bringing your whole life to college. Like, is that really necessary? And I kind of was a little bit snarky. It was called Shades of Red. I was 19, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy, I think he was a projector. I don't know. He wore a pea coat and he carried a suitcase, and he felt I wrote this article about him, and he was really upset with me, and it created all this drama like on this massive campus. I was really feeling a way about it. Felt really bad. And I kind of opened up to my journalism instructor and said, wasn't writing about this character. I've never even met him. I don't know who he is. And my journalism teacher looked at me and he's like, do you see any newspapers in the stands? And we always had leftover newspapers, and there was no newspapers anywhere. And he was kind of trying to teach me, like, you wrote something and people are reading it. So thank you, as the journalism instructor, for getting our newspaper out there. But it was a good teaching in that. And then I ran into this guy behind a bar, like on break. He's like, hi, I don't remember his name. Hi, I'm so-and-so. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. And just with that, he felt like he realized, I didn't write this about you. I don't have a clue who you are. The fact that you think I picked you out of this whole campus and made it about you, took it so personally, and then I got some fucking flack from this. That's a little teaching that has followed me. The same thing has happened with like a famous Each Other episode I did about HD dogma, where people in the community felt really singled out and nobody was singled out. And at that point of time, I felt that I was being positioned as a bit of a bully. Like I was inviting people to gossip in a space, which couldn't be further from what I was doing. But that was how it had been perceived by some. So I really needed to take a step back and evaluate, that's not what this was. And I thought I did everything in my power to mitigate those things from happening. And that is how it was seen. So what do I need to take from this? Because I don't want to experience this again in the future, but that is what's happening. I don't want to invalidate how people are feeling. And then I got pretty strict about what we would speak to on that show, like a little bit controlling, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Whoops, lesson learned, lesson learned.
I think that's necessary, though. I think a lot of times people, and I think that's my worry sometimes, is that people are going to misunderstand intentions around something.
Well,
and again, even though you dotted your I's and crossed your T's and thought you did everything to where people wouldn't misunderstand that, they still did, because people are still looking at it through their own lens and their own pain and their own triggers and their own trauma and all of that. And so you could come from the best place ever and people could still completely misunderstand your intentions.
But as the individual now who knows that and knows that they're being repelled or put off by whatever it is you're doing because they have their own story and their own traumas, as the person then being attacked, I can't really feel like I know where they're coming from.
Yeah,
that does make sense. I am sorry that you feel that way. I will take that and reflect on that, and I will let that change me, and I will learn for the future.
And I think that's important. I think
that's very important.
You just struck a really good balance of, okay, how can I be me and still do my thing, but also take necessary feedback, Well,
I'm not interested in going to war with you. And actually, people will often try to drag me into their wars. And I will say, I'm actually here for peace. I recognize that I can go to war and I can demolish, but that doesn't feel good for me. Just because I'm able to do that, because I can destroy, doesn't mean I enjoy destroying or even want to destroy. So if you put me into a position, I'm going to resent you, and I don't want to resent you. I don't want to do that to you. I don't even want to put that between us. So if somebody has, I have to tell you, I love to befriend an enemy, because, if somebody is upset with me or hates me for some reason, they probably have a reason. And maybe I'm in the place where I'm strong enough to hear that. Maybe I'm not, and I'll make that call based on how I'm feeling. But when people are able to get things off their chest, they're often not mad at you anymore. Like they just need to express. And then when you validate everything that they're experiencing and affirm that, and then take accountability for it, of course, I would never have wanted to do this for you to you, but I'm hearing that I did. And that was so not my attention. And yet you're feeling how you're feeling. And so I'm deeply sorry that my actions created this type of feeling in you that was not my intention. And I'm now kind of committed to healing that with you, and I'll do what I need to do. I think that people in the human design space meet each other like that. At least that's what I've seen. You know, there's conflicts and we separate for sure, but there is this such willingness to understand each other and move toward healing. And I think it comes from this place of we all are developing this lens of deep compassion for the sufferings of each other.
Yeah.
We're all coming into this space because we have wounds to heal. So we're all hurting. So if you look around and know that, let's just be gentle with each other.
Right. And those of us that are
Yes.
putting our lives out here and are these quote unquote public figures in
Takes
the human
courage.
design space.
Yes.
That's what I always say. I'm like, you know what? We're putting our deconditioning out here on the chopping block for everybody to witness so that other people can learn from it. And that takes a lot of courage. And at the same time, it's
You're so
important that
right.
we're not in echo chambers where everybody's just telling us how amazing we are and we are able to like take that responsibility, that influence that we have, and notice, okay, we have influence. How can we use it in a way that can help a lot of people if that's our prerogative, or it even for our own self growth. If everybody's just telling me I'm amazing all the time, I'm not going to be able to grow at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I love that you said I befriend a hater, because I know it can be really easy in the online space just to block people that don't agree with you or are pissing you off, you know?
I'm a little bit in the other camp there because I don't have thick skin. And, you know, to be in this industry, you need thick skin. Well, I don't have it. And I've invested all the investment into myself and my skills. Have I invested in these trades and skills that are ultimately going to hurt me? Because I actually can't endure some of that harsh feedback. And I do need to create these soft echo chambers that are supportive and encouraging me, because I can get really discouraged. And if there is something that I need to look at, I do not need to learn about that from somebody I'm not in a relationship with. I don't need some kind of troll online to come tell me somewhere. I don't know you. You don't know me. You're looking at this character I'm letting you see. Like you're seeing this projection that I've created, and you're reacting to that. You don't know me at all. I'm actually very private. But the people I've chosen to surround myself with will absolutely call me out in a loving way when I'm being shitty or I'm doing something or I've lost sight of something. There's sort of like a council of people around me, all Shores people, by the way, all Shores people, except my husband who's Caves. But I have this sort of friendships with this, what I would call a Shores council. And they're just my friends, and they're people who I really value their opinion and respect deeply. And I will go to them and they will, like, you know, they'll tell me, my friend Jasmine Nena is kind of my primary study buddy in life, but in human design. And she will like look at me and be like, you need to evaluate your whiteness. Like, you know what I mean? Like she'll just come out and this, like, it's loving though. Like I have to say it's loving, but but it's something I got to look at, you know, it's not some person who's an acquaintance. And I actually don't think it's always safe for me to be having those confrontations with people I don't have that rapport with. They don't understand me. So if I'm going to have conflict and challenge and need to be constantly learning, because again, I see what you're saying about like that echo chamber, like where's the room for growth?
Yeah.
But I have felt when I've been in these spaces that are echoing high respect and appreciation and accountability, and then giving me a compliment, I feel amazing in that space. And I do want to hang out there. It doesn't feel good to go into these conflicts. And yet I'm going to bump into conflict in my life. It's unavoidable. It's like part of life. Who do I need to work through that with?
Yeah.
So even if there's something that happens to me online, which I have to say doesn't happen that much in my career anymore, but if there's some type of confrontation because I've let a boundary slide, I will go work through it with somebody who I have this friendship with, this Shores Council, which is not a thing, by the way. I'm just kind of saying that here, but I will go to that circle of friendship, which I imagine you two would do with each other. If Brandy, something happens and you're upset and it rubbed you the wrong way, you might go to Teresa and be like, this rubbed me the wrong way. And Teresa might go, fuck them, you're the best. Or she might go, that's awful. I hear you. Or she might go, this is what happened to me. Like, but she's going to
Yeah.
give you what you need so that you can actually move that energy out of your body. So it's not trapped, not turning into something that could later potentially become harmful to your health.
Well, and for the record, I have very thin skin as well. And I
I
think
got
you're
soft,
almost,
swishy skin.
I think
Like,
you're speaking to the second line experience too, because
Mm.
there was a raw quote that wasn't in any of the material. It was like passed down by students that made its way to me. And it was something about how if second lines, if our world was set up in a place that was more accepting of second lines, we would not need to hermit. And that really stuck with me because I feel like we are naturals, we are sensitive, we're selective for a reason. And so we're not meant to be taking in everyone and everything and every troll that comes along. I think what you're really speaking to is our sensitivity, our selectivity. If we're going to put ourselves out there and be naturals, it does have to be met with some confirmation of that because we can't always see ourselves, you know? And so to have these spaces where we can talk to people that can call us out lovingly and still compliment us and encourage us, because otherwise it can be really easy for us to just crawl away into our hermit hole and never be seen again, you know?
totally. Yeah, Teresa. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's a concept in shamanic illness, which is a very simple concept where, according to like from a shamanic perspective, you either have something attached to your energy field that shouldn't be there or something missing. And all illness can kind of be deduced from that energy field and what's going on with if there's something there that shouldn't be there or something missing that you need to perhaps experience nourishment. I think this complements the human design study really well. And if you are thinking about, okay, well, wherever humanity's kind of collective consciousness is, it's how we relate to the technology of the time. So what am I saying? When human design kind of came out, the assembly line and vehicles were like our primary technology. And so we related our bodies to a vehicle. And now, like gaming, the gamification of reality, choose your own player, main character energy, that's kind of where we're at now. It's not really the assembly line anymore. It's kind of like digital reality. And if we can kind of then borrow from shamanic principles, the concept of entities and things that can stay with you or attach to you, a troll is an entity. It's a formless character that you met in the world, a formless world, the digitized world, and they stayed with you. They said something and you're playing it again and it's bothering you. That would be a form of shamanic illness. And so, do you actually have to engage with those trolls? Some people feel like they do. I was at a place where I felt like I don't actually feel like I need to engage with that. And I'm actually going to start talking to my audience in a way of how I want to be treated and how I would want to be spoke to or engaged with. There are still people who might come and say, whatever, like whatever, but I don't have to engage with it. Like, that's the whole thing. I don't have to like write a fucking reply.
Yep.
I've learned, I live with my husband is a totally open throat. And one of the biggest teachings I've learned from him is sometimes it's louder to say nothing at all.
Yes.
Sometimes what you don't speak to sends more of a message than what you choose to speak to. And I really take that in my life because I know my words can turn into weapons. And sometimes not saying or not, I will not even speak to that. I will not even acknowledge that says something, And so if somebody's getting all into something and they're all uppity about it, and it's that kind of demon energy, entity energy, troll energy. Well, I got soft, squishy skin. No shame in that. That's how I am. I don't need that sucking into me. I'm so receptive and coming and staying with me. And I create this whole narrative around it, which I have done in the past. A troll famously found me and was like, I was trying to break down something on environments and I was trying to explain, it's not just about like where you live. There's these micro parts and these macro parts. And I was trying to find the language. It was very early in kind of doing this. And somebody came and found me and was like, who do you think you are, introducing brand new concepts into the human design space? Check your ego. You're gross. And I was just like, oh, I felt horrible. And then after was like, do I think I am? Do I think I am? And I would look at my own design. I'm like, well, I'm an initiator. I come with a lot of mental energy. My nodes are in 64 and 63. I'm here in the confusing playing field of life to make sense of it. And I've got the willpower to put it out there if I want to. I do think I want to try and make my own concepts to teach some of these things. And that then led me into really changing the way I even teach variable. I do not emphasize leftness and rightness at all. I don't even really use that language because I don't think it's necessary. I think it reinforces unnecessary binary thinking. But that's the way we understand reality. So we have to explain it that way. Well, actually, if we would look at it differently, we might not even need to use those teachings. So if we explain this another way, how might it look? And just having that troll come and make fun of me and ridicule what I was doing, with enough time, I then thought, I'm actually going to do exactly what he says. I feel more power from being called out in that I can go make mistakes. And part of the value, or make mistakes, I can go try and explain myself to get my point across that I want to prove with whatever it is that I'm talking about. And there's lots of messes I've made in that for sure. But also it's allowed me to deepen into the material in a way that I didn't before. So I talk about this protection from these entities, but this particular entity, this pesky little spirit that found me and was making fun of me and made me feel really shameful, ultimately got me to this place of it's okay to make mistakes and try new ways of explaining. I started making shows of myself where I would say things and have to make peace with the fact that that's not what I think anymore as I keep going. Mm-hmm. And I said something stupid and it's out there and I got to make peace with that and I got to own it and I got to use my mistakes as my own examples and that's okay. And I'm growing and changing every day. So am I going to really beat myself up or am I just going to make a different decision today going forward? And again, I don't want to be beat up. Like I'm a baby. Like people are like, oh, you're so strong. You've been through so much. I'm like, no, I'm a pussycat. Fucking baby. Don't want to get hurt. Like grumpy inner child. Like leave me alone. I just want to have grapes and be fanned and have snacks and sleep. Like, and look up things that interest me. You know, I don't want to be yelled at by people who don't like what I'm saying. And I don't think we have to be. I honestly think like if somebody is coming at you and trolling you, I would block them. Like you don't have to be engaging with that. And there was a period of time, especially after 2020, we had the Black Lives Movement became really loud in our sphere. And it was as if you can't be blocking people. That's what we were taught. You need to be listening to what they're saying. Otherwise you're executing your white privilege and you're silencing. And we went through a whole thing with this. And what happened is we just started to get this influx of like harmful energy, I would say, with like just people throwing their traumas around at each other. And I think that caused some unnecessary harm. And I think we're getting into the place now where you can feel empowered again by blocking someone. Because someone will make another account and come find you. Like they're stalking you at that point. That's a stalker. Like, and that's what you have to, and then the person has to evaluate that they're being a stalker. I'm on my account and you blocked me. It's like, and now you're seeking me out somewhere else and doing the same thing. When are you going to evaluate what you're fucking doing? Get out of here, you know? Sorry, that was a little harsh. I don't want to be like that too much, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah. Tell them.
You go to throat, get out of here.
You guys are so supportive and encouraging. I'm being awful and horrendous. And you're like, do it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah.
No, I think it's important you had such a balance with it. You know, it's, if somebody's trolling just to troll, they're just a hater and there's almost, why should you invest your energy in them?
Or if you're the individual who is not liking something someone is saying, I've been on both sides of this, by the way. Like I've had the friends who are like, someone's calling me out. And then I had those same friends go call people out. That's not real human design. It's like, what are we doing though? What are we doing though? What are we doing though?
What are we trying to accomplish here?
Right.
What is your end goal here? So if you're somebody has said something and you don't like what they've said, and you are now coming at them and making a point, and you find out they block you, and you go on your other account and you're going to stick it to them again because they blocked you and you know they blocked you and you're like, fuck, I'm again. At that moment, just if you can, take a beat because you are now being that troll. I've been there. I've been the troll. There's been that aspect of my character and my spirit that comes out and I'm going for war. I'm going to tell you why I don't like what you did. Like, fuck, who cares? Vaness, get over yourself. why do I have to prove to that random person that they're wrong, quote unquote, wrong? Even that right and wrong, black, white, up, down, this binary thinking. I don't think we're actually there anymore. We know that there's more than one gender. We know that there's not always someone who's wrong in the situation, that there's many truths at once. So I think we're at a place where we want our concepts to reflect that style of thinking. And I think that's really available in human design, even though there is this emphasis on leftness and rightness. But really, if you have a left brain, you have an active brain. So let's just call it active, or a passive brain. Let's just call it passive. But when we're like, you're left, PLL, DLR, we're just emphasizing certain things that I don't know is necessary to emphasize. I don't know that it's wrong, but I don't know that it's as beneficial as we think. Ooh, sacrals. Ooh, ooh, what a response. Anyway, here I'm seeing the time, and I'm seeing where we're at. And I know that I can talk like for a long time. So I just want to say I apologize, and I respect your time.
If we love it. This is meant to be a long form podcast. So, you know, you go until you've said your piece.
Well, I so rudely interrupted you. So what were you going to speak to before I blurted in on top of you?
It's all good. I was going to say, I appreciate what you're saying, because I also think those of us that are really experimenting with the system and working with people and seeing what works and what doesn't work, we need to speak to that. You know, I don't know that Ra was, I know he gave a lot of readings, but I don't know how much he kind of held people's hand through the system. I think he just kind of impacted people. And then he had his people that, you know, stayed with him and worked with him and all of that. And I'm sure they got that side of him, but I don't know. I think what I'm trying to say is it's super valid to be a practitioner in this space and to say, hey, this language isn't working, or this thing isn't working, or we need to reevaluate the importance of this, or how we're saying this and how we're teaching this, and to see how we can actually make impact with it or make it be effective.
Yeah, you know, that's something that I've been kind of watching for the last couple of years, where I have some opinions about this, Teresa. Some people are human design studiers, human design lovers. They love it. They're really in it. They learn by the book, and then they have this valuable information. They start working with people, but there's no training on how to work with the other. There's no background in, let's say, even things like therapy or coaching or anything like that. And then you're coming in with this information, do this, be this way, right, wrong, correct, incorrect, like all this language that could be, in my opinion, harmful for the person you're working with. So you do need to have this sort of subtle blend of knowledge, experience, and space for compassion for like where the person's at. So not everybody is like a coach or a practitioner in that way. Some people are just like teachers of information. Like there's all kinds of, you could be an interior designer and apply this for your clients. Like you can be in any field. And I want to emphasize that. But I felt too much of an emphasis to translate information by the book in a way that superseded where the actual person was at and what they could handle digesting based on their unique arrangement of traumas, whatever they had in their life. I know when I started doing like working one-to-one with people, I could only handle so much because people would come to me and tell me things like, I was sexually assaulted by my dad, and I've told no one my whole life. And they're fucking coming and telling me that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a bath after this for sure. Because you know what I mean? Like and then that would ruin my whole day because I'd be thinking about that and thinking. So I had to get much more strict on, you know, I started working a lot with cancer patients or people with brain tumors who are really going through things that I need to have my spirits in a place where I can be there for them in the way that they need. And so I need to develop a personal discipline, but also be investing in my ability to hold space for the other and not just invest in my knowledge of, let's say, human design or feng shui or the shamanic arts, but people, in my ability to understand and be with people, which I think human design teaches you. But have I dealt with my own traumas in a way that I'm able to relate to what the other is going through or hold space for them in the way that they need? And I think something that I was seeing was people who are parroting human design information in a way that did not necessarily appreciate or respect the individual receiving it. And I think that there could be damage done there. But again, like, when we see that and we adjust and we make the adjustment, we can't, like, these things are going to happen. But I think you're showing me I maybe have an opinion there I didn't fully
Yeah.
realize. On I like when you guys speak about ethics and stuff too. You guys are both great at
So
that.
that's what everything you're talking about right now is exactly what the podcast is that we launched today.
Okay, well, I will shut up if you don't
No,
mind.
no,
You don't mind
I
repeating.
like
What
hearing your,
I would love to hear what you both think about that. And I know you just had a podcast come out on that, but if the moment fits, yeah, Brandy, where do you land on that?
ooh, again. Well, as we discussed in the podcast, it was very much like the information, the awareness, the training, the understanding where are your boundaries as a human design reader, as a practitioner, as a coach, as a facilitator? Like, are you comfortable with being like, I can't deal with this?
You
And
have
are
to be
you,
comfortable with that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
are you willing and able to go read the books, go get the trainings that you need to do to support the people at the level that you want to support them with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
And are you
I,
willing to accept when you hear something like our podcast that went out today? Are you willing to take that awareness and take action on it?
or you're going to be mad about it and
Are you going to be
resist it
mad about it
and
and take
dig
it
your heels in.
personally and be like,
Take it
nah,
personally.
they're mad at this and they think this
They don't
and
know
it's just,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like,
it's like turn that shame into something useful,
yes.
if you feel shame or feel called out. And I've felt that way before. And so that's why I wanted to deliver that episode with compassion and understanding for somebody who might be receiving that and having that being mirrored to them for the first time, because I remember feeling that way and being like, wow, second lines, we wing it. And I just winged it when I first started taking clients. And I just thought, I'm pretty good at this. I'm a natural at this. I was getting called out for it at the fitness studio that I was working with. I was already seeing clients for personal training and kind of adapting my style to work with them there. And I realized I was way in over my head with certain things and I needed more training and I needed more education. And I was just actually talking to a friend of mine who works in a psychedelic healing center, and she's a sitter and a coach, and she sits with people that are using ketamine and different psychedelics. And she's a 1-4, and she was saying her foundation did not feel strong enough, and she was looking at it as an insecurity, and then realized, oh, it's not that I'm insecure about my job. And she was thinking she needed all this training around like addiction and all these things, and it was this 5,000-hour training. And then she realized, I don't actually need that. I just need the therapist that works out of our center to put together a training for all of us to be able to learn about addiction and suicide awareness and trauma and certain things that maybe some of us are not educated on, and that we could have a better foundation in like what to do if this happens and what to do if this happens. And so it's not meant to be something that's shameful and saying you're wrong. And I really believe that people that want to sit with people and work through things and present this information like are most of the time coming from a really good place and a heart-centered space. And if you really want this to be your craft, there are things that need to be learned and refined in order for you to get better and better at it.
Beautiful, Teresa. I learned that I could have really good intentions and still cause a lot of harm.
Yep.
I
Yes.
learned that in my shamanic studies firsthand when I was kind of going through my Saturn return. I was culturally appropriating. I was harvesting plant material from the land that we lived on and like selling it as smudge, and which is very offensive and not what that actually is. I was more so selling something that was used for, let's say, smoke cleansing and using herbs, but I was using the language of smudging, which is a very specific practice to indigenous cultures, and inviting spirit in, not necessarily casting and neutralizing the space as I was trying to translate it. And then I have this indigenous baby. So I felt like I was hurting my own baby, like I felt like I was doing something so wrong, so I learned there that I can have really good intentions and my own blind spots, my own blind spots can still cause harm. And that was really hard for me to hold. And then I found that going through my experiences working with others, whatever I had been through, whatever I had experienced, I was naturally a little bit more passionate about that. So I worked with lots of cancer patients right away. And I got recruited by the Canadian Cancer Society to do some motivational speaking for them because I was a good speaker and had a story. And they didn't come across a lot of people who were like young speakers who could speak to this upsetting thing, because you have to reach to a certain place of peace within yourself to even be able to kind of publicly talk about it. And so I got recruited to do that for a bit. And I think from just the exposure, maybe I had a lot of mothers who would reach out to me and ask me to speak to their teenage daughters who were going through cancer. And I did that for quite some time. And then it led me into speaking in gyms at schools to young women who are around like 10 to 13, where their bodies are going through changes. And my message was, that's when I got sick. My messages were always, listen to your body, and how can you be in relationship with your body? What is your body teaching you? And then learning, some little kids take those messages and they run with it and they think you're a celebrity and that everything you say is like the fucking Bible. And I was like, this is weird. Okay, this is weird. So I started to kind of distance out of that. But then, and on the topic of everything that we're saying, I like to work with people where I have experience or I can relate to them in some way. And I think that's where a lot of our interests drive from. So we have some authority in a way because we've experienced it and we've lived it. But if you're feeling like called out, if somebody feels called out by, let's say, a podcast episode that is saying, you know a lot about human design, but maybe you don't actually know a lot about people. And maybe you don't even realize that. I think everybody who's listening to that, we know you like to invest in yourself by studying human design because you like to learn. How fun to be able to invest in other skill sets that you have, like learning how to be a coach or learning how to be, who knows where that might lead you. It doesn't need to be this shameful, off-putting thing. It could be this really exciting thing like, ooh, another area in myself to invest in. So I become even better at what I do and what I'm putting out there. It doesn't need to be like, oh shit, I feel horrible, I'm doing something wrong. It can be fun and expansive if we let it, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, friends. Thanks.
I love that you brought the fun element into it. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes my desire motivation just comes across as, this isn't working, you guys, come on. And so I feel like you brought some like lightheartedness into it, and just like, yeah, it can be fun to invest in yourself in that way.
Yeah.
I think you're very lighthearted. So it is very neat to hear you self-reflect on, your open heart, Teresa.
I know. I can be
Like-
intense though. I'm a Scorpio moon.
Cool.
I have a lot of Capricorn. I have Capricorn stellium. So I've also
Love
been like
that.
learning about astrology more lately and seeing myself through the astrological lens, and seeing how it adds a different layer to my awareness. Like, yeah, I'm a completely open heart, but I've got a lot of Capricorn. So there is kind of that like gritty part of me. And then that Scorpio moon that is I don't know, just very emotionally intense. And you can see that in my human design chart anyways, 3955,
It's the best part of you. That's your best part of you. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think my public persona is definitely more lighthearted. Brandy's definitely seen the like darkness in me that can come out. Because I feel like
Brandy's nodding.
it's really nice because I have her to like workshop things with,
Totally.
when I'm
totally.
in a wave and I'm trying to process how I feel about something or what I think about it, I can be not PC. I can be totally myself and just work through what I got to work through with her. And then by the time I'm ready to come talk to the public about it, I'm a lot more settled and I actually have clarity and know how I feel about something. And that can still change, but I don't like to talk about intense things or the things that I feel intensely passionate about if I don't actually have clarity and I haven't workshopped it with somebody else already.
I won't talk about much I'm going through in the moment I'm going through it.
Yeah.
Like I need to have space between me and the thing where I'm at a place of inner stillness where I can speak about it. Because if the emotions are still ruffling and then I've got a platform, I'm sending out energy that I'm not aware of. And I don't want to I don't want to do that to anyone, So if I'm going through something and people are like, hey, what do you think about, like if I had a microphone in my face, what's your comment? I would be no comment because I'm not at a place where I've worked through it and I'm not going to bring any value to this conversation because I need more space to feel what I'm feeling. Something else, Teresa, that I've seen you do that I really like. I love when you use tarot and show us. Love that in your stories. And it's your way of like, you connect to your emotions through it, I find, and it brings this affirming energy. I just like how you do it. I like when people show their other modalities or their interests, because then you like, oh my gosh, remember the first time I saw Brandy share something about her brother. It's like, what's this? What is this? What is this new character detail? Okay, this is interesting, you know? And when people, I love when people show a little bit more of themselves like that, whether it's tarot, whether it's family members. I have certain family members like won't even let me show them, like won't let me speak to them whatsoever, like hard boundaries, like will let me live my little public life, but or like don't speak about me. Yeah, I love when people show us their little parts of their life that make them more of a real figure or something. Like it speaks to our compassion. Like, because so many people are like, I don't share it online. If sharing it online, you just want to, you're an attention whore and you're this or you're whatever. It's like, yeah, but what about those of us who our entire way we've made a living has been online for the last 20 years? Like, that's all we fucking know, you know? And we do have to get creative in how we make money or whatever. You know what I mean? We're all just so hard on each other unnecessarily, I think. But I think that's changing. At least that's the world I choose to live in that I think that it's changing.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Is this our natural endpoint now? Is this our natural
endpoint? It feels good to end. I feel like we needed more spaciousness and room to breathe. I feel like as an emotional, like at the hour mark is where I really start feeling it. I'm like, yeah, we're getting into it. We're getting intimate now. You know, there's that crescendo that naturally happens. And that's how I've started to see podcasting, where it's almost a wave that we're moving through together. And then it lands. And then you're like, oh, cool. The plane has landed.
Beautiful.
We
so
also
are we
like
gonna
to,
oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. We also like to look at where the moon's at and like the arc of what we're talking about, you know, through the lines.
How fun. Like that is so fun. Is like I think that's fun. Let me just go into my little toolkit and look at all these things to help me understand the moment. That's so self-aware. And you get to delight in the awareness of I might not feel great at that time, so maybe I'm going to make the adjustment. Like you have this collective awareness where you can zoom out beyond the earth, look at the cosmos, and have some kind of impression about what you might be going through. What a beautiful mirror.
Yeah,
I'm inspired by that.
After we recorded that last podcast, I was like, I really want to see where the moon was, because the moon is really the driving force, you know? And I was like, I feel like the moon was in something intense, and it was in 44.3 through 5. And so it was interesting listening back and hearing us go from like, you know, if you know about the moon, the line really leads to where Ra got his motivation words. So desire, need, you know, guilt. And you can hear us going from, you know, this desire to express something that's not working, and then what people need to do. And then this is the action that you can take. And we didn't know in the moment, but afterwards I was like, I'm just really curious, because that was a really interesting arc that we moved through.
Don't you feel so charmed by that? Like, aren't you just, I'm charmed. I'm like, look, that's just, you know, and I just get.
Today we've moved through 26, 2, 3, and 4 in this conversation.
Wow.
So Brandy, what's your impression of that? What does that mean to you?
Oh, I just I like
cute sound.
Just looking at like what even at the beginning of the conversation, like what we hoped would happen, listening, talking, and then it got a little bit more passionate, you know, and then here's the things that we need to come from this. Just watching that.
The arcade.
And we're really selling it. We're selling it, right?
Yeah, we are. I feel even when we opened the podcast, I was feeling this sense of hope coming from Vaness, like hearing her story and hearing. Yeah, it was like, I really felt hope to be in the human design space. And then it kind of felt like
beautiful space. It's a beautiful space. I'm a champion for the space. The characters in the space are some of the most incredible people you're ever going to meet. Look at your relationship. You found each other. You wouldn't have found each other without this. So forever, you two are bowing to human design because it led you to each other. How incredible.
Then the desire from the space. What do we desire from in the space?
What do you desire in the space?
Just basic bitch words like compassion and self-awareness.
Love those words.
I
Are
mean,
those basic words? Because then I'm a basic bee and I will happily play that character because those are good words in my books.
and like openness and receptivity, and just like, if you're in the system and you want to take it in, then take it in. Be open to taking it all in, taking in everybody's different perspectives, and through, everybody's everything. Be open to
beautiful.
taking it in.
And also gentle on each other.
Mm,
We're all just a bunch of little wounded babies who didn't get some of the things we needed. And now we're on the hunt to discover what those are for ourselves and find ways to give them to ourselves. So
Yes.
wouldn't it be wonderful if we were all just encouraging and affirming each other in that process?
Yeah.
Maybe we
Like,
should all learn gentle parenting techniques on each other.
or maybe we should just all change our profile pictures to our little selves.
It's mine on Twitter is my little
Brandy.
self. And I've thought about doing it on Instagram too.
We do that at Inner Space. We have a board.
I love Inner Space.
We have
I
a
love
board
Inner
that
Space.
all of the people that work there, we have our pictures of our little selves. So that, and it says love yourself on it. One of my staff members made it. She's like, I always use the term love yourself. And so she made this bulletin board and it says love yourself. And then we have these little pictures, and it started off because I had a little picture of me that was in my office. We were cleaning the office out to make it into something else, and someone found it and they put it up, and it was a little me there. And I was like, oh, hey, how about everybody brings their little selves in so that
Brandy.
we can see every day that we're just little selves walking around.
That's so beautiful. I'm obsessed with that. I'm going to
Yeah.
repeat that everywhere I go because it's true. Brandy, when you see a picture of someone as a little kid, they're being a fucking shithead, excuse me. And then you see this picture of them and you're like, oh,
yeah.
They're being a shithead because this happened.
Yeah. You can like drop into that compassion so quickly.
Yeah. It's like you're squatting down. Hey, buddy, what's going on? You're not in this business suit. Like you didn't meet the agenda.
Yes.
I mean, like, fuck off. But
yeah. Like when I fuck up or whatever, like even on my little thing is a big fuck up. It's a yellow star, and it's a picture of me from like first grade. And it says like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was like the theme of making this thing. And I put, I want to be a model is what I wanted to be. And then my mom corrects it.
You are a Modley.
And then
You're already a Modley.
My mom corrects it and spells model wrong again. So both of us, so we have both spelled model wrong. And so it's like, you see our, imperfectionisms. My mom's a 6 line too. She's a 4-6, but you just see that, and you see like, I'm not perfect. Even when I was little, I was like, I want to be a Modley. And my mom's like, she meant module. And it was,
and now she comes as an adult.
And she was
meant
always,
model.
and she was always backing me up. Like, here's what she actually means. And then even, she was like, and so from that, and then we have these little people in the back room, and it's just like, we can always just look at them.
Yeah. And have you did you pursue modeling?
No.
Oh,
she's a role model.
That's why I was like, she's a fucking 6 line. She was tuned in. Girl was tuned in as a little baby. And I know you think that's not perfect, but isn't that such a perfect story?
Oh, it's so perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Does it not say
I love
role
it.
model? Because I thought I could have sworn it said role model.
No, just model.
Okay.
Modley, and then module. I'll take a picture of it next time I'm on at Inner Space and put in my stories.
I love that, what you do at that place. And when you do put on the giant festival or gym ride or whatever that is, that's going to be a hit. It's going to be a hit. It's going to be a hit. People are going to come, they're going to play, they're going to party, they're going to drink and vape and do all the things you would do, not at a conference, but at a festival. Party.
Human design festival.
Or,
yeah.
No, but don't think about it. Don't we all just want a place where you all get together and you're like, yeah, it's hard being alive. Love you. Like, that's all we want. That's all we want. Can't wait for that, Brandy. Can't wait for whenever that happens or whenever that's going to be,
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, we're coming up to our second hour here, and now I have to peace out. But this was really, thanks for letting me talk your ear off. I know I can go off sometimes, and I really appreciate it. I think you're both doing really, really important work in the human design space, but in life. And you're two really popular characters on the field, you know? So anytime, I love that the move to featuring just you guys, not always guests too. I think more of that and introducing the pop culture that you guys can help us learn through. Like, yeah, everything you guys are doing in this space, I think is really, really inspiring and timeless, even though it's about sometimes local things going on. And I love to have watched the progression of where your show has gone to and the growth in it, but your relationship at the helm and seeing you two adore each other and appreciate each other. I do find that the longer I'm in this space, you notice people buddy up, or you notice that they have a group or and it does shape their opinions and their learning. And we know that that's supposed to happen. Like, we know we're supposed to kind of find each other that way. And then when we see people who I think it's important to shine a spotlight on them. Especially, like, again, Voyeur, you're both just very beautiful. And you got this like ebony, ivory, black hair, blonde hair. And it's just like, give them a show. So when your show came out,
I love how you say
But
that
now
all the time. Give them a show.
You're like Oprah, you get a
Oh,
show, you get a
you
show,
get a
you
show.
get a show.
All get a
Producer.
show. You're all chosen.
Producer energy over here. Yeah. But you're fun to watch. You know, you're a pleasure to watch.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Vanessa.
Vanessa, and thank you for being here. We really have enjoyed getting to know you over the last year and hope to get to know you more.
Brett, yeah, Teresa, I wore our color today. I
I
wanted you to
noticed
notice.
that.
You
I mean,
did.
technically,
Yeah.
I'm still wearing one of our colors,
You are.
black.
You're on
but
brand. You're on
I
brand.
love
You're on
the
brand.
blue is my favorite. I love it.
Mhm. Teresa and I are both winter palettes. And so we
Mm.
bond over when she looks good. She posts a picture of herself online. I'm the first one to be like, oh, you look so good. Like, I can't help it. I don't know why. It's so I am. I see something, I like it. I have to tell you. It's like, you look so good. Bye. Oh, God.
I love it.
Oh, thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks, you guys.
And
Bye.
if you want
never
to
mind.
locate Vanessa, we will put in the show notes where you can find her website, Instagram, YouTube, all of that good stuff.
Come find me.
Awesome.